Hi, I'm Paul Catalanato, and this is my friend and colleague Hamp Overton. This is the 100 Scariest, where we are looking for the scariest short streaming online. In this episode, we're talking about 2015's Pictures, directed by Spencer Alred. It was written by Spencer as well as brother Benjamin and Drew Hallman. It stars David Cardona and Misty Potash. Hamp came across this one while researching this show. According to LinkedIn, Spencer is a multimedia designer for Kuru Footwear. He produces short films through Jumping the Green Productions. Pictures is a fantastically impressive short that manages several twists in its short runtime. The IMDb logline reads, Pictures is the story of a woman who discovers the photographs on her phone reveal what will happen a few moments into the future. She soon realizes, however, there is a sinister presence at work. So, Ham, Pictures. I have to say, I thought this one was amazing. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. It hits a lot of the things that I like in a short film. It keeps you guessing, which was a lot of fun. It had the twist, as you mentioned, and I like the simplicity of it. I appreciate that so much more because tools are becoming so available for filmmakers these days, and everyone I feel often tries to make a feature film cinematic looking vehicle, and they get so bogged down in the filmmaking process and making it look like a Hollywood film that kind of the film itself gets pushed to the background. And here it looks it does look good. I don't want to say it looks cheap or anything like that, but there's hardly any dialogue in it. The lighting appears to be very straightforward, very simple, as in one person with another person that comes later on in the film. And so I appreciate the simplicity of it, and it shows what you can do without a tremendous investment in gear and cast and locations and things of that nature. I'm not sure where he got the location. I love the use of the mannequins. Man, I think mannequins are always scary, especially when they're covered with with a sheet, because they look like a human being covered up. And he did a great job in not letting you figure out, um, what was real and what wasn't real. Suddenly the mannequin appears real. Oh, it's a real mannequin when he pulls when she pulls the sheet off, and then later on, that same mannequin starts to move, and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? And so, it really keeps you on your toes as you're going through the whole film.
That's what I thought was really genius about it. He tells you exactly what you need to be scared of a few shots before the scary thing happens.
Hmm.
The door. She's looking at the door. Now she looks at the front door, but then right over the shoulder is the door that she should be scared of. We
Exactly.
know it because we instantly connect it like, oh, it's not the door we're worried about. It's the door we should be worried about. The same
Right.
thing with the mannequins. We're worried about the mannequins, but there's no danger there. There's no danger until she looks over the balcony and we
There
see
you
she's on her tiptoes. And then
go.
what do we see? The great moment where it just we see something turn and look at her.
Hmm.
And it even tells you where it's going with that great ending shot. It tells you the entire time, but when it gets there, you realized it's not how you thought we were going to get there.
He completely fools you, and you even wonder if this is her story. She seems to be the tool to end the other guy's life. And so so she's just a participant. She is not her story. It's not about her. And all the clues he gives you, it's about that person that ends up getting run over at the very end, although she is the catalyst for that action happening. So it's very clever how he keeps realigning the story as you go along. You think she's going to be the victim. You're not sure if the creature's in the house or not in the house. Because remember, the first image is that she realizes there might be something. Well, you have the toast, but you see the monster's hand outside the window, right? And then she goes into the other room. So yeah, you're sitting there thinking that it's gonna happen to her, and he does a wonderful job of misdirection, which is great. All the way through, you think, yeah, that's what's gonna happen, and you're fooled. But it makes sense too. You don't feel like you've been cheated, like it's been a switch on you, as in, ah, that was a cheap switch. Sometimes movies will do that where oh, it was only a dream, that kind of thing. Instead, it's very well earned because it's so well put together. We look down and we see the body and we immediately assume it's her. Because of all these situations here, it's in the camera, and the tool of the camera, the cell phone camera, is we can see the image, but we can't see it that well. So maybe we can't discern that it's not actually her. So it's very, very clever. The use of storytelling and the use of the tools he used to tell the story, to me, it just really worked well.
It did. I mean, I always judge these things by how proud I would be if a student made this or
Hmm.
turned this in, And like this is that definitely a short like that. If somebody turned this in one of my classes, I would be thrilled to see it. Or even if I was a part of something like this. This one really does a great job of constantly being fresh. And what I mean, this movie starts where she's looking at the picture and like, this weird thing. Like there's kind of amusement on her face at the beginning,
Right.
right? She's like, this is weird. This is really happening. And then just like you talk about where we see that hand on the window, it literally changes into a different horror movie at that moment or a
Hmm.
different kind of scare.
Hmm.
And that is really hard to do in a feature-length movie, much less a 9-minute short film.
And he did lots of, and he's very good at this. And so it must be his forte in that he leads us down that one path. Like you go into the room and it's a room full of sheet covered mannequins. And that's a bad sign no matter what kind of horror movie you're in. And so, and if you watch it, when I was watching it for an additional time, she's pulling the sheet off that one mannequin, and it must be the longest sheet on the planet because she keeps pulling and pulling.
Yeah, it's like it
And it
keeps
reminds
going.
me, right, right. To me, that's a Sam Raimi gag. He does that in his movies where he just exaggerates how long it takes for this thing to happen that it's gonna happen. And then at the very end, it's just another mannequin. And then the same thing with when she goes to the window. Not only is she leaning out of the window, but we look at her feet and we see her feet are on tippy toes. And that's like the perfect setup, right? We know there's a creature in there. We know it's doing bad stuff. And then the mannequin turns. And so our conclusion is she's going out the window, right? We've
Mhm.
al- we've already seen the photograph, right? Of that. And it's just natural. Why would she lean out the window?
Well, and that's great when she's on her tiptoes like that, right? I mean, can you
Hmm.
imagine a more compromised position? I mean,
Right.
she is completely helpless in that situation. But the funny thing is he gives you exactly the shot you think is coming, but just not the outcome. She turns and it's right in her face.
Right.
So
Hmm.
what we expect is push.
Bump. Exactly.
That's exactly. We expect the short to end right there.
Hmm.
It doesn't. We get a hard cut to her going through the front door,
Right.
and that's when he
I
lets
think we
you
see the
know.
mannequin on the floor or something like that. Right.
Exactly, and he lets you know, no, you're wrong. This is not where
Hmm.
he's going. And then we get to that great moment. The poor guy too, right? He's just like, oh, this woman obviously needs my help, and she could barely get out what's going on,
Right. She
right?
stammers for a long time. She does stammer for a very long time.
And look, and did you know the funny thing is too? He even cheats us there a little bit, right? The guy avoids getting hit by a car when he's walking across the road.
I know.
So it's like, okay, well, that's not it.
Hmm.
So he allows us to think they're both safe. At that point, when I first watched the movie, I was expecting like a mannequin to fall out of the window, hit her on the head, is really what I was thinking.
That's a good solution there. Right. And even the ending where it ends that she's completely unharmed, you know? Yeah, it was really fun the misdirection that he did because he set us up using all the tropes, but he didn't abuse them. He did it in a very clever way to where you didn't feel cheated. Everything was earned, and it was
Mhm.
it was really a lot of fun to see that, watch the whole movie. I'm gonna go back and watch it again and to see how he did it and constructed the whole film.
You know what else I thought was very unique about this movie, just thinking about the cinematography, is it's not a very dark movie at all. It's
It isn't, right? Well, but we could say that of some of the other movies we watched, like the last one we did with the woman whose mother. Which one was that called? Mama Agnes. Okay, that takes place in broad daylight. Same thing.
But the contrast in Mama Agnes was it was darker in the house and it was brighter outside. This
Yeah,
one's more where, yeah, the windows do blow out at times, but I don't get the sense he's doing the evil is inside and the safety is outside. It's
right.
pretty, there's shadows and contrast, don't get me wrong, but it's not beyond being natural.
Hmm,
Would
hmm.
you agree with that?
Well, yeah, because she's about to paint the walls, and the walls are all white. And
Mhm.
then she has the tarps hung up in plastic, and it's like this bright, it's not white plastic, but it's like translucent. And then she goes into the mannequin room and it's white sheets over everything. So everything's white. So it's yeah, it's you're right. It's taking a different turn from your traditional horror film. You can think about pumpkin guts, all at night, scary, dark, shadows, all that kind of good stuff. And this one goes the opposite direction, which to me is another fun way to go against type and still create a very clever horror film.
So this is now the sixth movie we have, I guess, inducted into the 100 scariest, right?
Hmm.
So I want you to think about this. A common theme that I've noticed just while we're talking. Lights Out. How much dialogue? Not very much.
Yeah.
Night of the Slasher. The guy that comes over talks a lot, but when she's speaking, she doesn't speak at all because of her, what happened to her throat. The bad guy doesn't say anything. Portrait of God. Mama Agnes says very little. And now we're to this short. I'm starting to wonder, like, to be a great short film, do you not have dialogue?
Well, there's two things. One, it could be our preference. But two, the thing that I notice with all of these shorts are usually made on a shoestring budget. Okay. The filmmakers are usually young. When you don't have a big budget, you don't have a large payment for actors. I'm not saying the actors are poor in these situations, but the easiest way to make an inexperienced actor better is to give them less dialogue. That is the most difficult thing for an actor to do is to perform with dialogue. Just being frightened and things like that is a lot easier to do than to express things emotionally and nuanced and things of that nature. So again, it might be a combination of the two. When you start having actors without much that experience, the inexperience comes through very clearly. And then, so when we watch these films, again, we're seem to be catering towards shorts because Martin Scorsese isn't making short horror films, so we're we're these are usually young people that are doing these, and they're learning the craft, and they're doing it on budgets that they can afford, and part of that budget includes hiring actors that don't have the most experience, and I think a lot of them have figured out if we give them less dialogue, then it can help with the performance.
No, and I think you're right. Like, I mean, you look at Missy, I checked her out on IMDb. This is her one and only credit.
Yeah.
And she does a great job.
Hmm.
I never once noticed her performance. David Cardona, who I assume is the victim in the movie, he's in more. He's in like four shorts, but none of the
Hmm.
actors are doing a lot of acting, I should say. So I think you're right. I think keeping it, he's got the most dialogue, right? Where he's, hey, are you
Right.
okay? What's going on? And then boom.
She doesn't have any dialogue. All she does is text with a friend and then stammers when she's downstairs. Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So he does do a good job of directing both of these actors
Yeah,
with
and I think yeah,
dialogue.
I think he recognizes that because he makes another movie later on, The Inside. Did you watch The Inside? It was one of his shorts about the artist, and she doesn't have a lot of dialogue to say, but she does narrate portions of the film, and you can see she's a much more seasoned actor when you watch the film, and you can look at her IMDb page also that she has done quite a bit more. So that's an interesting film. It reminded me a lot of. Do you remember the Babadook? Did you see that one?
Yeah, I remember the
Yeah.
Bob. Love that
This
movie.
yeah, this one's very much in the same vein where the horror is manifested by her inability to do her artwork. And she finally faces it and it chases it out of the house and locks the door. And but again, that looks like a much more seasoned actor that they got, and you can see that she's done more work since then also in feature films.
I watched his short, A Guide to the Inversion.
Hmm.
I watched that one, which I thought was interesting, considering some of the things I've done with, my Vintage
That,
8 project.
that's exactly what it reminded me of. The old insert the VHS tape and hit play. That's your intro right there. Hmm.
Yeah, so it reminded me of that. It's interesting to see filmmakers who are obviously interested in traditional narratives experimenting with that. You can see where, there is something obviously going on with YouTube and this type of movie. And because we even saw this with the director of Mama Agnes, even he was attempting, these analog horror type things. So
Yeah, I'm glad you're speaking on that because I think you probably have a lot more knowledge about that than I do. But it reminded me very much of some of the material that you had done, where it was a PSA that we get to look at or a newscast that we get to look at, as though the events are actually happening. Hmm.
and this one was pretty well done too. I enjoyed it. I actually shared it on my other page and try to get some people to watch it. The one thing I will tell you that, and I would love to speak with this director because I was looking at his subscriber base. He's got 20,000 subscribers, and his movie pictures 6 million views. It's a very interesting dynamic. You would think with 6 million views he would have more subscribers, and I've noticed there's fall off with his other shorts. It's interesting, the algorithm in general is what I'm coming, because he's obviously a filmmaker of worth and should be getting more views on his stuff. But I think it's important to note for what we're doing is how one thing can just blow up and then other things kind of fall through the cracks.
No, you're absolutely right. And you can probably speak more to this than I can, but it's more than just making a good film. You have to get it into the right eyes, onto the right pages, so that people can find out about it. I mean, there's so much content on YouTube vying for our attention. How do you get your material out there? And I know that you've worked with this yourself on how to find the best way to let people know that your material is out there, etc. And then you got to generate more new content too. That was another issue. He doesn't, he it looks like he's got a full-time job also. And so how do you make new content on a regular basis when you're working full time? It takes a lot of work.
And it does. And then there's also with trends, right? Trends
Yeah.
move and change. And I think they even move faster online.
Hmm.
know? Like, I mean, you look at movies and how fast trends change, like year to year. I think online it's month to month. Like something can completely come out, change everything and the whole dynamics.
Well, sure, yeah. It's what do they call it? Fast fashion, that sort of thing, where your YouTubes and your TikToks, etc., will bring something. Did you just last a couple of weeks ago, I was buying Dubai chocolate because my my daughter found it on Instagram, I think it was. And so
I have to know, is it good?
it's actually pretty good. Yeah. Is it worth $15 for four tiny slices? Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'll wait on that fad.
Yeah.
If I had to highlight one thing though about this short, I wouldn't say it's the story, which I think is quite good, or the
Hmm.
cinematography. I think what this thing lives and dies by is the editing. I think the editing is so tight in this movie that it doesn't give you a chance to think
Yeah, that's very important.
could happen. He
Hmm.
gets to the point, he grabs you and keeps you going down the rabbit hole. And I think that's largely to do with the editing of it. It
Yeah.
moves very well, but it's not like it's rapid pace or anything.
Hmm.
It's deliberate, but it's not like Mama Agnes where there might have been like 7 shots in that short time spent in. This is moving, but the editing is doing a good job of guiding your attention, but not revealing anything that he doesn't want you to know.
Yeah. He does a great job in guiding the audience down the path he wants them to go down, which is the wrong path. And then so he can surprise you again. And he does it more than once, which is a lot of fun. That's what makes it so entertaining, I think. It's just like, oh, wow, I didn't expect that. I love some movies. What was I watching the other day? Oh, I was watching the first Smile movie. Okay.
Mhm.
And once the event happens, you kind of get a good idea of what's going to happen, and you just wait to be a lot of jump scares, which to me, I just don't think that they're I don't think you I think it's kind of lazy filmmaking when you have jump scares because it's not earned. It's just like in that one, there was a jump scare at one point, and it comes out of nowhere, and it's not logical, and more than once. I'm not a big fan of those. I would rather something be yeah, cleverly earned or emotionally earned in that regard, rather than, the cat screeching, running out, or something like that, or some of that nature. And that's what this one does. And so that's why I like this film a lot. To me, it did not take any shortcuts. It earned everything, all the feelings I had, and afterwards, I kept thinking about it, which was fun. I was like trying to go, oh, how did you get there? And it's like unraveling a puzzle. And to me, those are the best movies, are the ones that are that, not the ones that are overly emotional, but the ones that, because again, you can engage your audience two different ways, emotionally or intellectually, and an emotional film might be a romantic movie, right? The intellectual film would be a murder mystery. And so this one's more like a murder mystery where we're trying to understand what's going on. It's a puzzle you're trying to figure out. And so I have a bias more towards that than for the straight emotional ones. And so that's why this movie appealed to me so much.
I would like to see the planning process of a short like this too,
Mhm.
because there's no doubt that this was well planned. I would be very surprised if he said, "Hey guys, we're going to just shoot a short today." Like I
Mm.
have to believe
Oh
that
no.
they
Yeah.
wrote this, they
Sure.
really thought about it. I mean, there's three writers on this, and I have to believe they were really thinking about this. There has to be a storyboard. Like they knew how they were going to do this before they got there. And I would be shocked if this wasn't well planned. Because like even the shots, it's all most of it's on sticks, if I'm not mistaken, too. I don't really recall a lot of handheld. I think
Hmm.
maybe there's a little bit of shake as it goes along and it gets scarier. But like, I mean, I think the whole thing was very controlled.
Yeah, I agree with you, Paul. And I think that's something that, when I teach first year film students, that's the thing that I believe surprised. I know it surprised me, and maybe we touched on this before, is that you watch a 2 hour movie, you go, oh, it took them 2 hours to make it. Now, of course, yeah, there's so much behind the scenes stuff available now that I think most people aren't that naive. But knowing how much work goes into a movie, I think does surprise most people, even when they do a short. And as you said, with this one, for everything to work, it really has to be planned out. It has to be storyboard. It has to be, they have shot list. They have they probably go to the site and do rehearsals on site. Um, they may do stills ahead of time for their storyboards if they're not drawing them. All the production design involved in there. Maybe they got lucked out with the space, but even things like, the paint chips, you got to buy the paint chips. You got to make sure that her outfit matches the guy's outfit that's down on the ground. And so all these things, and then how do you get, it's a stunt. A guy gets hit by a car, and is it, I haven't watched it again, but maybe it's animated where it's a fake car going by or something like that. But then you have the blood. So there's all these elements that you have to plan for. So I agree fully that this was well planned out as well executed.
Yeah, and that looked like an after effect that he did. I've seen
Hmm.
that effect before. I've had students use that effect
Yeah.
where the body kind of jerks like that, and it looks like something you do in After Effects, but it was really well done. And just like you said, like I mean, like she's dressed in almost a very similar outfit as that guy. And when
Right.
you pay attention, that's the hint. The guy's in blue, I mean,
But you don't notice it.
yeah,
That's the
you don't
thing.
notice it. That's
And
what's
why
great.
don't you notice it, Paul?
The editing. The
To
editing.
me, to me, it's because you're engaged in the story.
Oh, well, that's what I mean, the editing. It always
Yeah,
puts me on
I
the,
find that when you start finding problems with the film or
oh
or
yeah.
predicting what's going to happen, it's because the movie isn't engaging you. And so therefore you're entertaining yourself by going, "Oh, I bet this is going to happen." Or, "Oh, look at that mistake they made." This is so engaging that we never go into that thought process.
No, you're right. And you know what I would love? I would love to have seen them probably debate those outfits. You know that I'd be willing to bet that there was some talk about that. It was like, oh no, it looks too much like what she's wearing. Ah, it doesn't look enough like she's wearing. There had to be an argument or a conversation. Well, nope, this is the perfect blend of both of them to where you.
Right, because you have to believe that she's about to paint a room in the outfit she's wearing, and the other guys, who knows what he's got planned to do, but it has to be not look like he's about to paint a room also, because that would kind of stand out. So,
You know the funny thing is, the last shot after you now that I've watched it like 4 or 5 times, it's funny to notice that they're in a parking lot at the end.
right. And the car that ran him over doesn't stop. It just
It doesn't stop at
it
all.
just keeps on
Yeah,
going.
like the guy just keeps going, or whoever's driving keeps going, and and he was, and I'm saying he, but whomever was driving was going way too fast in that parking lot. They
Yeah.
were at least going 70 miles an hour in like probably a stretch of road that was like
Yep.
a few feet.
Hmm.
Couple
Hmm.
yards. So, but I never realized it one time until the fourth or fifth time I watched it. I was like, it's a small parking lot, not a road. Like, I tell you, if we would have, after the first watch, if you'd asked me where was the ending shot, busy intersection. That's what I
Right.
thought.
Or a much bigger parking lot. That's what I thought. The second time I watched, I was like, oh, it's a very small parking lot. Why is this guy going so fast in this small parking lot? And then that
So,
she looks up and sees the hand go back into the apartment, and I'm wondering, is she going to go back in that apartment, or what? What is she going to do now? I was kind of disappointed that she didn't try to help the guy that just got run over. That only happened in my second viewing. I thought this guy just got run over, and she doesn't have her phone out to call the police or 911 or anything like that. Instead, she's like looking up. I can see that she's looking up. I went with it the first time, but the second time I was like, she's not really responding, I think, the way you should be in this situation.
she does, though. It's delayed. It's delayed. She does, though. It does come after she looks up and she kind of realizes what happened, and then she looks down and she's like that. Of course, we also get the delayed death from the guy too, which is kind of true to the form of the rest of the movie. The guy's there dead, he's got
Mhm.
dead eyes, and he
Pops up.
coughs up blood.
Yeah.
And his eyes never, they stay
Hmm.
that very dead stare.
Hmm. Hmm.
I can forgive that. I think that
I
worked.
could get to me also the first time I watched, even the second time, and yeah, I had no issues. Yeah, it just the whole thing just worked so well.
Yeah, it worked with the style. And like you said too, I don't think she's the one who's haunted, right? It's not her. It
Right.
doesn't really seem because like they've obviously had to be living there a little while.
Hmm.
She's painting the house, right? I mean, I didn't get the sense she was a contractor or something like that. You're usually living in a place maybe 2, 3 weeks, and then she's getting around to painting a room, or maybe she's been there a while and just wanted to change. But I didn't get the sense she was haunted. This was probably Def. If I had to say, just pulling something out, Def wanted that guy and had to manipulate the situation to take that guy out.
That's kind of how I got it. It was sort of like, what is it, Final Destination in that regard. In that she, like we mentioned earlier, she's the catalyst for his death, and Death had to get her down there to get him in that spot to get hit by that car. So, yeah, that's sort of how I saw it.
And I think that's added because, like, what's the last shot? The last shot's not it coming for her because
Hmm.
he could have took that road where the monster's looking at her or closer to her at the end. He could have did that, but no, we see the monster kind of looking and leave.
Yeah. That's sort of again to get back to his other film, The Inside, which I compared it to the Babadook. At the end, if you watch that one at the end, she looks outside the window and there's a monster outside staring at her, and she closed the blinds on it. And so it just seems to have a similar sort of story like this one, where the monster is not necessarily defeated, as in destroyed, but it's controlled, if that makes sense. And so it sort of had a similar vibe to it, I thought, as his other movie, The Inside, also with a female protagonist. So,
that kind of seems to be in line with a lot of modern horror, right? Where the horror is not necessarily a monster. I mean, it's represented as a monster, but it's more representative of an emotion like grief or
Sure. Yep.
anger or fear or something like that.
Hmm.
You know, you don't really beat these things, you just
Yeah.
control these things. So anything else you'd like to add before I move on to the YouTube comments?
No, I enjoyed it. Um,
Yeah, I'm proud to put this on the list as
what
number
does
6.
what does YouTube have to say?
Probably the first comment that comes up is, and this, my friends, is how you do a horror movie on a budget. No crappy FX or jump scare at the end. Merely tension and a terrifying atmosphere the whole way through. I
Hmm. Yeah.
was 8 years ago. And I thought that was I think that sums up everything that we're trying to say in this longer
Sure.
production. Someone else
Hmm.
wrote this. This is a good point. And I didn't once think of this until I read this. If only she were holding some sort of device that allows you to call for help.
Taking the fun out of it.
And then somebody else wrote, I got 2 words for this short. Yeah, right. I would have been outside that apartment by 9:01 a.m.
Yeah, that was when I was looking at his other short about the artist. Um, she she crawls into a dark attic after seeing this monster, and I was like, "Who in their right mind is going to crawl into this crawl space in the attic with your cell phone?" No, she had a little flashlight, but yeah, makes you
And
wonder
of course,
about
I'm
that.
gonna read this. And then some people, no one's funnier than the internet. I think the light
Hmm.
blue would have looked good on that wall. So for our next episode, we're going to do a longer short. We're going to do Finley, the 25-minute doll movie that has pretty much owned YouTube to a degree. I've seen
Mm,
that one everywhere.
good, good. Looking forward to seeing it.
All right. Well, that's pictures, guys. My name's Paul, and this is Hamp, and this is the Scariest Shorts. If you got a short you want us to check out or think we should, leave it in a comment. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, peace.
Thanks, Paul. Bye bye.